The most powerful man in American tech has a past darker than the system his son just breached. In just 3 agonizing hours, the digital leak went from a tiny glitch to a global news explosion. A humid New York summer night, the air thick with the smell of ozone and approaching disaster, became the backdrop for a revelation no one could have predicted. The city pulsed with restless energy, unaware that a 7-year-old boy had just torn open the veil, hiding a secret that could topple an empire. Ethan Walker was 35, a single father clinging to the fragile threads of survival in a city that never slowed down. By day, he was a low-level IT security analyst at Synergy Tech, a faceless cog in a machine that was already preparing to cut him loose. By night, he was a man haunted by medical bills that piled higher than his courage, the crushing debt left behind after his wife's death. Their cramped Brooklyn apartment was more than just a home. It was a reminder of everything he was fighting not to lose. His son, Leo, only 7 years old, was unlike any child Ethan had ever known. A prodigy who taught himself to code before he could ride a bike, Leo lived in a world of algorithms and puzzles, his small fingers dancing across keyboards with a brilliance that frightened Ethan as much as it amazed him. But genius came with isolation. While other children played outside, Leo buried himself in hacking games, building digital worlds where he felt in control. Ethan worried constantly that his boy's brilliance would become a prison, cutting him off from the life every child deserved. The pressure was relentless. Rent was overdue, eviction loomed, and whispers of layoffs at Synergy Tech grew louder each day. Ethan had already begun taking questionable side jobs in cybersecurity, the kind that blurred the line between legal and dangerous. He told himself it was temporary, just until he found a way out. But deep down, he knew he was running out of time. Then came the night that changed everything. While Ethan was away on a minor consultation, Leo sat at his father's secured work laptop. What began as innocent curiosity spiraled into the impossible. The boy stumbled upon an encrypted file buried deep within Synergy Tech's servers, a file even Ethan had never seen. With the playful intuition of a child, Leo used a simple code he had written for a game to bypass a firewall designed to stop the world's best hackers. What he uncovered was a folder labeled Phoenix, and inside, the secret that would shatter their lives forever. The next morning, the sound of tires screeched softly against the curb as a black, unmarked USV pulled up in front of Ethan's building. 2 men in dark suits stepped out, their silence more threatening than words. Within the hour, Ethan found himself escorted through layers of biometric security, rising higher and higher until the elevator doors opened into the private penthouse office of Synergy Tech's CEO. The air was unnervingly still, the city skyline stretching endlessly behind glass walls. Jonathan Hayes sat waiting, a man whose calm presence carried more menace than rage ever could. His voice was measured, deliberate, as he laid out an offer that seemed less like a choice and more like a sentence. $10 million in untraceable cryptocurrency, money that could erase Ethan's debts, secure Leo's education, and buy them a future. But the price was silence. Not only would Ethan have to bury the breach, he would have to manage the evidence himself. And worse, Hayes wanted Leo. Not in custody, but in service. His unique skills harnessed to fortify Hayes's empire. "Mr. Walker," Hayes said, his tone smooth as glass, "your son's genius is an asset, a threat, or a tragedy. You decide which. $10 million is the price of silence, and a lifetime contract is the cost of my trust. Refuse, and you won't just lose your job. The world will see a security analyst whose 7-year-old completely compromised his company. Your reputation will be vaporized." Ethan's voice trembled with restrained fury as he demanded to know what the Phoenix file truly was. Hayes's eyes narrowed, but he deflected, circling back to the money,
to the ruin that awaited Ethan if he resisted. The message was unmistakable. Accept the deal or watch his life and his sons collapse into ashes. Ethan's phone buzzed with a call from his estranged sister, Sarah. Her voice was sharp, urgent. She told him the landlord had filed an eviction notice. The walls of his fragile world were collapsing faster than he could hold them up. When he hung up, Leo bounded into the room, his small face glowing with excitement as he showed Ethan a new coding puzzle he had solved. The boy's brilliance was undeniable, but his innocence made the weight on Ethan's shoulders almost unbearable. On the desk, a photo of his late wife stared back at him, her smile frozen in time, a silent reminder of the promise he had made to protect their son at all costs. Inside, Ethan's conscience tore him apart. $10 million could erase every debt, buy Leo the education he deserved, and give them a life free from fear. But the cost was his integrity, his soul. If he refused, they could lose everything: home, safety, even their lives. If he accepted, he would be binding his son to a man whose empire was built on lies. He asked himself if exposing the truth was worth condemning Leo to a childhood of hunger and instability. At last, Ethan made his choice. He told Hayes he would comply, but only under one condition. The $10 million must be placed immediately into a trust fund, controlled by a third-party lawyer, untouchable until Leo turned 18. Hayes' eyes narrowed, but he agreed. Ethan had sold his silence, not for himself, but for his son's future. And with that, father and child stepped deeper into the shadows of Hayes' world. Ethan and Leo were relocated to a secluded estate in the Hamptons, a place that looked like paradise, but felt like a cage. The house was sleek, modern, and filled with every luxury imaginable, yet the silence inside was suffocating. Every corner seemed to hum with unseen surveillance, every wall a reminder that they were being watched. The staff moved like shadows, polite, efficient, but strangely detached. They never met Ethan's eyes, and when they spoke of Hayes, they used only one name: Mr. Sterling. Leo, wide-eyed and thrilled, treated the mansion like a playground. To him, it was an adventure, a dream come true. But Ethan felt the weight of the trap closing in. He noticed details others might ignore: the way the guards whispered in hallways, the coded language about a package delivery delayed by the leak. It wasn't digital. It was something tangible, something dangerous. One night, while pretending to teach Leo a new coding sequence, Ethan discovered a hidden wall safe. Inside lay an old, military-grade satellite phone, an artifact from another era. He powered it on, and buried within was a single file. Not a program, not a document, but a photograph. The grainy image showed Jonathan Hayes in a military uniform, standing beside a man Ethan recognized instantly: his late father. The name stitched on Hayes' uniform read, Sterling. Ethan's pulse quickened. The truth was no longer just about corporate corruption. It was personal, and it was buried in a past that connected directly to his own bloodline.
The truth behind the Phoenix file was more devastating than Ethan could have imagined. It wasn't just identity fraud. It was a military discharge record buried for decades. Jonathan Hayes was not Jonathan Hayes at all. He was Colonel Hayes Sterling, a decorated officer who had faked his death 20 years earlier after a covert mission went catastrophically wrong. That mission had left dozens of American soldiers dead, among them Ethan's own father. In the chaos that followed, Sterling vanished, siphoning off a massive defense fund that became the seed money for Synergy Tech. Hayes hadn't simply reinvented himself as a tech mogul. He had built his empire on blood and betrayal. Beneath the polished glass towers and billion-dollar deals, he was running a black market arms network, using Synergy Tech's innovations as a cover for weapons development and secret military operations. Ethan confronted him in the penthouse, his voice steady but laced with a fury that had been simmering for years. "Phoenix wasn't your escape, Colonel. It was my father's execution." The words cut through the silence like a blade. Hayes, outwardly calm, betrayed himself with a flicker in his eyes, a soldier's instinct surfacing beneath the mask of a CEO. Then came the revelation of motive. Hayes insisted it wasn't greed that drove him, but a twisted sense of duty. He claimed the arms ring was necessary, a hidden lifeline funding an elite, off-the-books unit he still commanded. To him, Synergy Tech wasn't corruption, it was patriotism in disguise. And Ethan's hiring had never been coincidence. Hayes admitted he had orchestrated it, keeping the son of a loyal soldier close, a pawn in the game that had begun long before Ethan ever knew. Ethan knew Hayes had no intention of letting them walk free. The so-called safe house was nothing more than a gilded prison, and the truth about Colonel Sterling's past had made one thing clear. Hayes would vanish again, and this time he would take Leo with him. The boy's genius wasn't just a curiosity, it was a weapon Hayes wanted to mold for his own Black Ops network. Desperation sharpened Ethan's resolve. Using the antiquated satellite phone, he reached out to Sarah, his sister, sending a small but precise data packet. It wasn't about Hayes' identity, it was about the coordinates of the mysterious package delivery tied to the arms deal. He knew the military nature of the information would draw the right kind of attention. The final confrontation came in the underground server room beneath the Hamptons estate. The air was cold, humming with the sound of machines as Hayes prepared to download the last fragments of the Phoenix files before disappearing. Ethan, standing beside Leo, unleashed a Trojan horse hidden within the boy's simple game code. In seconds, the servers began to collapse, data vanishing into nothingness. Hayes lunged at Ethan, the fight brutal and raw. Years of military training clashed against Ethan's desperate will to protect his son. In a final act of defiance, Ethan used his IT knowledge to short-circuit a primary power conduit, sending a surge that incapacitated Hayes long enough to end the struggle. Moments later, the FBI stormed the compound, drawn by the leaked coordinates. They intercepted the arms delivery in progress and captured Hayes, Colonel Sterling, before he could escape. Charged with treason and embezzlement, his empire crumbled. Ethan gave a full deposition, securing immunity. He refused the blood money, declaring he would not profit from his father's death. For the first time in years, Ethan and Leo were free.
Ethan emerged from the shadows of Hayes' empire, a changed man. No longer the debt-ridden analyst who lived in fear of eviction, he carried himself with a quiet strength, forged in the fire of betrayal and survival. He had faced the darkest corners of power and walked away with something far greater than money, clarity. He understood now that true security was not measured in bank accounts or corporate titles, but in the integrity of the choices he made. He built a new life as a private security consultant, dedicating himself to exposing corruption rather than hiding it. His work was modest, his income steady, but his conscience was finally clean. On his desk sat a single, unencrypted photograph of his father, framed in wood, a reminder of the man whose death had set this chain of events in motion. Beside it, Ethan placed Leo's battered old laptop, the same one the boy had used to crack open Synergy Tech's secrets. Instead of keeping it as a relic, Ethan donated it to a community center, along with a scholarship fund in his late wife's name, ensuring that other children with untapped brilliance would have a chance to shine. In a voiceover, Ethan's words carried the weight of everything he had endured. It was a letter written for Leo to read when he was older. Never let a secret own you. The code you write will always be less important than the truth you choose to protect. Your greatest power isn't in your genius, son, but in your heart. We didn't get the money, but we bought our freedom back. That is priceless. Sometimes the scariest threats don't come from the dark web, but from the darkness hidden inside the most powerful people we trust. Ethan's story is a reminder that the truth always finds a crack in the system, no matter how carefully it's buried. He sacrificed wealth, safety, and comfort, but in doing so, he protected his son and reclaimed his freedom. Did Ethan make the right choice, giving up millions for his conscience? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you believe a father should always protect his child, no matter the cost. Don't forget to share this story with a friend who loves uncovering the hidden truths of corporate America. And subscribe so you won't miss our next deep dive into the shadows of power. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, the biggest secrets are often hidden in plain sight. Until the next shocking true story, signing off.